Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen deep ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
Up, LAFB fans, you are listening to the Bruin Bible right now, but we want to bring to you our sponsor for the show. It's BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon finals. I know our guy Madman will be all over that. The big tennis fan of the bunch. Major League Baseball, Dodgers in the midst of a big-time season, highest payroll in the league, 3 MVPs in the lineup. Can they figure it out? The latest fighting news, a huge MMA fight coming up this weekend for the UFC, and even next season's early NFL futures. I know you guys will be hammering the Rams and Chargers overs on the futures for next season. Head to our website to use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LAFB to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts. What is up, and welcome to another episode of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker here, your host. I am lucky to be joined by old friend of the podcast, Thuc Nhi Nguyen, in the house, writer for the LA Times. Thuc Nhi, how have you been? It's been so long since we've seen you.
I know I've been doing well. It's about time we come out of not football season hibernation. You know, we're ready to go.
Any traveling this summer? Were you able to get away from LA and go anywhere cool?
I went home back to Seattle for a little bit. My nephew had his first birthday, so he turned 1. My sister was super extra about it and catered it with a food truck. So I was there for that.
What type of food, I got to ask?
Oh, it was a taco truck. It was very good. It was very good. I mean, my
love
1-year-old nephew is not going to remember it, but I will.
The pictures will make it, a fond memory, in the future where they can look back on it. My first birthday is celebrated with tacos. And if you don't like tacos, I don't even want to speak to you. That's just something I'm going to kind of, extricate you from my life. We've got some big news, Thuc Nhi. They had the Regents meeting today. And for UCLA football and UCLA athletics in general, this is a big, big meeting because the UC Regents, which is kind of like a board of advisors, a board of governing board, so to speak, are trying to block UCLA's move to the Big 10. They've kind of given up on USC. USC is going to be the team that's going to make the move to the Big 10 for sure. UCLA, from everything we're hearing, it sounds like the Regents have some sort of chance or opportunity to block this move. Famously, John Perez said today, one of the UC Regents that is from Cal Berkeley, saying everything is in play, essentially, when it comes to blocking UCLA to the Big 10. It's kind of just been a comical mess, so to speak, with the UC Regents. A lot of people are not happy about this move up at Berkeley, University of Cal. Governor Newsom's been chiming in on this. It's been a big, big ordeal within the state of California is if UCLA can get blocked from going to the Big 10. Thuc Nhi, kind of give me the breakdown on what's going on with these region meetings.
Yeah, so my colleague, shout out to Ben Bolch, our UCLA football beat writer. He was there at the Regents meeting. And obviously the UC Regents don't have any power over USC. They're a public or a private school. So whatever they do, they're on their own. But UCLA and UC Berkeley are obviously part of the UC system. And I think a lot of people wondered why UCLA would be kind of leaving their UC brother out in the cold by leaving to go to the Big 10. And I can understand why the UC Regents are upset about this. And I understand why a lot of people are upset about this, whether they're fans or donors or student athletes or, anyone else at UCLA or in the other UC schools. But it seems like the Regents don't quite understand how college athletics works because they it doesn't seem like they have the power to kind of thwart this properly done deal by Chancellor Gene Block at UCLA. All the schools are allowed to kind of make their own sort of deals in certain realms, including for intercollegiate athletics. I mean, no one is saying, UCLA is allowed to be in the Pac-10, but UC Riverside isn't, so how is this different in a way? So I understand why the Regents are trying to fight. I'm just not sure if this fight will go anywhere for them.
And Ben Bolch, your colleague, friend of the show as well, had a great article today where he was talking to John Sandbrook, who was chief of staff to former UC president Mark Udoff, and a longtime UCLA assistant chancellor under Charles Young. He had some great quotes in there where they said the UC Regents essentially trying to mess up this divorce from UCLA and Cal. There could be a lot of aftermath where these Regents can really, take a lot of punishment for what's going on, because I just don't foresee a scenario where Cal Berkeley, a school that has relatively underperformed in the sports world. It's been a while since they've been a great football program. It's been a while since they've had a great basketball program. If they were tying their success to UCLA, they had to kind of pull their own weight, in my opinion. And they have not done that in the sports world when it comes to those sports that I just previously mentioned. Baseball, they had a couple of years there, but I mean, baseball is far behind the likes of football and basketball when it comes to moneymakers within the college sports world. So it's a tough situation. I think I was initially shocked when the news came out of UCLA, as many people were, in UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten, but it's just making Cal look bad in this scenario, because you look at all the other UC Regents, the governing board, it's really the Cal people that are pissed off the most, where it's like you said, UC Riverside, UC Santa Barbara, all these UC schools, they're just kind of like, we don't really compete in the Pac-12, so we don't really even care. Like, you guys can just go do what you want to do. It's just a bad look all around. And it's really interesting to kind of see this play out in motion for UCLA. The next topic we got is, if UCLA does end up making that transition to the Big Ten, I still think it's a done deal on my part. They signed a massive, massive media deal today. I believe it's over $1 billion a season for the teams associated within the new Big Ten that will be coming this year to CBS, and when UCLA and USC joins in 2024. How big of a moneymaker is this for UCLA compared to their time with the Pac-12?
Well, it's huge. First of all, let's just put it plainly, it's a lot of money. It's more than $1 billion a year for 7 years. It was the media contract that was reported today. And for UCLA and USC, they both immediately get to be full-time members of the Big Ten, which means they get equal stake in that big pie. Previously, when the Big Ten expanded, they had Maryland and Rutgers, and they kind of had this kind of phasing in process. So they didn't get full stakes immediately. But the Big Ten, because they know how valuable USC and UCLA are in the LA market, they're like, hey, you guys don't have to go through that you don't have to prove yourself. You can just have all the money, which is going to be a lot of money. I think I want to say that last year, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say that maybe each Pac-10 or Pac-12 school got about $30 million.
That sounds right. I read a similar article to that. And this was before the deal happened, Thuc Nhi. We were looking at Ohio State and Michigan, two of the premier teams of the Big Ten that UCLA and USC are going to compete against. And they were making $25 million more than UCLA and USC with those TV deals. And this is not even including the new deal that's going to happen now, which is probably another 20 to 25 million more at the very least, ahead of UCLA and USC. So from a money-making perspective, I think Martin Jarman did a hell of a job. And UCLA was in debt, with that Under Armour deal that they had to back out of the Jordan deal. It just was not in a good place before Jarman got there. He upgraded UCLA, made it cool with the Jordan brand. He's making it even cooler with the competition coming to the Big Ten. Big Ten football is a big deal. I'd say outside the SEC, it's the biggest conference when it comes to football on Saturdays in the fall. So with UCLA and SC going there, you're getting these historic universities coming in there, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, even some of the smaller schools there, Thuc Nhi. I mean, we've all seen the game day experiences at Wisconsin, Iowa, places like that. They're packed to the brim. It's like 80,000 strong plus at some of these places. And you just weren't getting that on the Pac-12. And I think that kind of, puts us into my next question. Without the premier football school that USC is for the Pac-12, and without the premier basketball school for the Pac-12 that is UCLA, is the Pac-12 done? Like, is it done being a major conference? Because I think you were at Pac-12 Media Day. I didn't get to see you there. I'm bummed about that. I would have loved to have met you in person. But Clevecoff, it was an awkward room to be in, to say the least. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, it was a little spicy. I kind of liked it, though. Usually media days are so boring. But, yeah, that one was a little spicy. I kind of appreciated it. It's a tough road for the future of the Pac-10. Are we calling it the Pac-10 again? I'm not sure.
We have to, right? I mean, we have two teams that are leaving in 2024.
Okay, well, I will say the Big 10 isn't changing its name to the Big 16, okay? The college sports needs to figure out its math. The only math it can do is counting up that TV dollars. That's it. Okay, by the way, I just looked it up. Each Pac-12 school made $33.6 million last year. The longest tenured Big 10 schools last year made $54.3 million. Wow. So,
that's like the bottom tier of the Big 10. Like, that's like Rutgers making that much money with a TV deal.
That's the top 12. So Rutgers and Maryland last year, when they weren't full members yet, made $27.6 million for Maryland, and Rutgers was 11.4. But they'll be higher this coming year because they've made it to the top.
New deal, yeah, they're gonna be ripping it. So.
Yeah, but back to your question about the future of the big Pac-12, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I mean, they're going to try to add a few schools, which George Kliavkoff told us at Pac-12 Media Day, but there's really no equivalent to adding or to losing UCLA and USC, especially in the media market of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They might try to add a San Diego State, which is a very good football team, also a very good men's basketball program. But just that the losing the media market is not quite the same. The Pac-12 might still try to schedule a lot of neutral games in Los Angeles to kind of keep its, hang around to make sure people don't forget about it. But it's going to be really hard. And I think a lot of people are talking about Oregon as kind of the big fish in the Pac-12 that's feeling very alone right now. Me being a UW alum, I think a lot of Washington fans are like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to us? So it's going to be real awkward on the West Coast come 2024. That's for sure.
Yeah. And like, you make some really good points. Like Oregon and UW and some of these other schools are looking at moving. And at least from an athletic standpoint, like those schools to me offer a lot more than what Cal can offer me just from an athletic standpoint. Washington has made a college football playoff since we've had the format be there. They're a team that has constantly won 8 to 9 games in this decade, an average. And, the same with Oregon. Oregon is, still getting top level recruits, even with this Pac-12 news happening. And for what I think there's going to be 3 teams that are going to be really, really coveted by the Big Ten or, maybe independent, maybe SEC. Who knows? Everything's screwed up right now geographically. So I
would love the SEC to just poach the Pacific Northwest teams, just to completely throw the map out. Like, what is geography? We don't do math in college football, and we don't do geography.
Nothing like an in-conference game of the Florida Gators playing the Oregon Ducks or something like that. But right. If any school was going to do it, like, you have to think Oregon might be the team just because Nike is funding them. Like, if Phil Knight wants to play with the best, his voice will be heard there because we look at all their flashy new uniforms they have every year. We look at what they bring to the table in terms of like lifestyle and just how cool they look as, a team to, young recruits. if one team was going to make that transition to the SEC, I think the Ducks can do it because they have the money backing them up if it were to happen. Is that a crazy take?
I mean, it's certainly a popular one. I think a lot of people look at Oregon as like the big remaining brand in the Pac-12 after UCLA and USC, which is not untrue. I mean, what Chip Kelly did in advancing that program and making them the prominent program that they are now, they very much outgrew the city of Eugene, and they really do have a national cachet. And I think a lot of people look at USC as a historic program, which it definitely is. But for a lot of recruits now, they're 18 years old. They don't remember the time that USC was good, but they do remember the time that Oregon was good. And they remember the time that Chip Kelly was good at Oregon, which is one of the things that people around UCLA look at. It's like, now we have that coach now. So they're expecting that kind of like to carry over to UCLA. And I'm not sure if that's worked out, which is a completely different conversation.
Yeah, totally. And like you mentioned, national footprint, one of the top high school quarterbacks in the country. If he's not number one or number two, he's in that top three. A kid named by the name of Dante Moore. He's from Detroit, Michigan, and he committed to the Ducks over the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, all those schools in the Big Ten. So the national footprint is very much alive there. It's just, I think, a matter of them going elsewhere. The other two schools that I mentioned, I think Stanford can appeal to just anybody just because of what they provide. My co-host for some of these podcasts, Jamal Madney, LA Football Network guy, he believes they can go independent. And I think that's a really good take because they're so unique compared to other schools that they would actually fit the bill of an independent school, in my opinion, when it comes to conference.
Sure.
They have Olympic level sports, Olympic athletes, for these Olympic sports that they can provide there. They've got the academics, they've got the football. They're almost like too prestigious to even put in a conference, if that makes sense. Stanford is, when you go international or you travel, I'm from the Bay Area, so when people come up and talk to me, I've had multiple people in Europe and different places go, "Oh, Stanford University, like that's where I wanted to go." And it's crazy to hear that footprint out there. So I think Stanford could be one of those schools, and I think your alma mater, Washington, provides enough of a cachet, enough of a cool experience where they can definitely make an impact going to the Big Ten or one of those different conferences. So love that we were able to talk about our conference realignment. I think every football podcast is doing that right now, but it's such a hot topic. Thuc Nhi, we got to get to the football stuff. You've been covering.
Oh, right. They're actually going to play games. I forgot.
We are less than a couple weeks away. And I mean, it's the best time of the year for somebody like myself. I love football. I know you are very excited to check out the college football season as well. UCLA, I know you're close to the program. I know you've done some great articles. I want to talk about some of the storylines coming in this year. And I read a great article by you in the springtime about Dorian Thompson-Robinson returning to UCLA. And it was kind of Chip telling them that you should go pro. He was kind of trying to give them the door. But I just want to re-harp on this because I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Chip Kelly have such a special relationship when it comes to college football. I mean, this is going to be the 5th year that Thompson-Robinson has started there. I don't get to go behind closed doors. I know you've been there and watched that whole relationship unfold. How is that? Like, how are they together? And, like, I know Chip speaks glowingly of him, but I want to hear your takes on it because you're up there close every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since Dorian Thompson-Robinson started at UCLA. He was part of Chip Kelly's first recruiting class. He was actually a Jim Mora commit, but he stuck around under Chip Kelly after the coaching change. And Chip has been so loyal to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, probably more than any other player. And Dorian's really gone through a lot of stuff in his career. From his freshman year, he comes off the bench and backs up injured Wilton Spate. And he turns the ball over a lot. But at the same time, he was a freshman. He hadn't played a lot of high school quarterback. So, of course, he was going to struggle. And he's had some really great moments. He's also had some really awful moments. But I think Chip has shown a lot of kind of just commitment to the quarterback. And for a kid who comes in with so much expectation, but not that much not as much experience as a lot of other quarterbacks. I think Dorian needed that. He needed someone to have his back when the inevitable mistake kind of came up. And I think it's worked out really well for them. I think Chip believes in Dorian. And, if you're a quarterback, what else would you want? And so I'm excited to see what Dorian Thompson-Robinson can do. I think he's probably one of the first people who will tell you that his career hasn't gone the way he wanted it to go. I think when he was maybe a freshman or a sophomore, he made these shirts and he posted them on his Instagram about how like all of his goals in football, and on the shirt, and one of the goals was to be the number 1 overall pick in 2021, which obviously that didn't happen because he didn't go to the NFL. So he's sticking around for some unfinished business, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can kind of do in this final last season once and for all, because he doesn't get another chance after this, and he knows it. So it should be really interesting. And for UCLA, you're only going to go as far and be as notable as your quarterback will take you.
I totally agree. And I think we saw a definite jump from Dorian last year. I think what the national audience doesn't understand is how big of a win that was for UCLA over USC at the Coliseum. And I know it wasn't a great historical USC team, but just beating the team across town that has constantly had your number, that is the face of the city, so to speak, when you think of college football in a lot of ways. I think Dorian slaying that dragon, so to speak, was something that's going to give him so much confidence heading into the next season. You could just directly see it the next game he played against Cal. I mean, statistically speaking, it was like his best game of his career, that last game, and we got the bowl game canceled. But the way he finished those last 7 quarters, it was 7 touchdowns passing, 150 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was very electric ball after the opening quarter at USC. So I think Dorian's going to be really good this year. I think that's one of the storylines I'm looking forward to. He was always an athlete, trying to play quarterback. Last year was the first time I saw a quarterback that could also be an athlete. And I'm just really, really pumped to see what DTR does in his final year. Another great article you had in the spring, and Chip Kelly brings a lot of great transfers in. I'm really excited about Azizi Hearn. Azizi Hearn is a nickel corner that's probably going to be starting for them. You reported he had a phenomenal spring, a couple interceptions in practice, then he had a one-on-one pick. Give me your takes on Azizi. What is he like, and how is he fitting in at UCLA?
Well, I think UCLA is going to rely on all of their transfers immediately. I think that's kind of the Chip Kelly MO at this point. So I don't expect a lot of big things from him. I remember him saying that he always wanted to go to UCLA. He's originally from San Diego, and he just never got the attention as a recruit. And he started his career as a walk-on at Arizona. And you kind of like those kids that have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, that have something to prove. And he's ready to get a chance to prove that he belongs in the place he always thought he did, So I'm excited to watch him play. And I think the defense in general, as it's kind of always been under Chip Kelly, that's the big question about this team. Is this defense going to go anywhere? Because, Chip Kelly is going to handle this offense. He's has Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He has Zach Charbonnet. They're going to take care of it. But can the defense hold up? And Azizi Hearn and the Murphy twins, those are going to be some really big transfers that UCLA is going to have to rely on.
I heard the Murphy twins had a wonderful spring too, but that leads me to my next question. Bill McGovern, new defensive coordinator in there. All the reports have been pretty positive from what I've been hearing. Azanaro never faced the media in general in 4 years. McGovern's out there at least speaking to the press. The players seem to like him. They're calling him a player's coach. What were your impressions of Bill McGovern, the new DC for the Bruins?
Well, I think it'll be interesting. Of course, right now during fall and back in spring, everyone's happy. Everyone's great. Everyone's so excited about the new coach. Everyone gets along. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he hasn't coached in college in a long time. So I will be interested to see how jumping from the NFL will affect how he runs his defense at UCLA. And I mean, it's not just him. I mean, UCLA has new coaches for linebackers, defensive line. It's a lot of change on the defensive side, and it's going to be difficult for the team to adjust. But I think for UCLA, it's much needed change, like they needed a refresh on defense.
Totally. Before we go to USC, I know you cover them as well. We kind of want to get a nice new picture of USC and how UCLA can potentially game plan for SC in the game that will come this fall. But what is your number one storyline going in to this season for UCLA on the Bruins?
Number one storyline. I mean, number one, it's probably the quarterback, right? I mean, there's a reason why you started with your question as the quarterback, right? So you always start with the quarterback. And I think UCLA needs a good year from Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And I think Dorian wants to give UCLA that good year that everyone's been waiting for a long time.
I totally agree. I think Dorian's going to have a massive year. I'm really excited to watch it. Now we got to pivot to the Trojans. And, I mean, this is probably the biggest offseason USC football has ever had, given the turnover, given the transfers coming in. I mean, Lincoln Riley, when that hire came, I think a lot of our hearts sank as Bruins fans because we knew what he could bring to the table there. And, boy, did he waste little time in, acquiring some of these transfers. He got probably the number one the number one quarterback in the transfer portal, the Biletnikoff winner in Jordan Addison, Travis Dye, the all-purpose yards leader last year for the Oregon Ducks. He had a murderer's row of transfers. And I know you're close to that program as well. Just kind of give me the feeling inside that building. How are the USC players adjusting to Lincoln Riley and, the new star power that's associated in South Central?
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about the transfers at UCLA, and Lincoln Riley rolls up and he's like, hold my beer, Chip. Like, I got this. But I mean, expectations at USC are really high, which like they should be, right? Like you're USC. You should be expecting to win. And it's been a long time since USC was at that level, I think. I think they've been kind of just treading water or even worse in the last few years. And the fact that they were able to hire Lincoln Riley was such a power move. And it really announced that like they're here to play. And I appreciate that Lincoln Riley is making his intention clear. Like we're not here to rebuild, and it's not about patience. It's not about the process. They're here to win now, championships this year. And the way he went through the portal the first offseason, like really shows that he's taking an aggressive stance, which is not unsurprising considering the way he's been known to coach at Oklahoma. Obviously, his offenses have been known for very explosive, big plays. And I feel like that's kind of the energy he's brought into this team. One of the coaches said at their in-house media day that Lincoln Riley is never scared. He doesn't call plays thinking, oh, but what if this shot doesn't make it? He's always thinking, but what if it lands? What if we score? And I appreciate that kind of bold strategy, especially for him, because he's got such a big job. He has a lot of work to do on this program. I mean, last year you said it wasn't a historic team, but it was a historic team, but just bad. They were historically bad, like statistically the worst defense ever.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah.
So he's got a lot of work to do on this team, and I think all of the players that stuck around, all the players that signed with him, they understand what's ahead, but they all signed up for it, and they're all excited to tackle it together.
Absolutely. And as a fan and, someone that covers the Bruins, I like to look for holes in the USC team, as we all do. We try to look for ways that UCLA can be better than them. And the way that I'm looking at it, they have a lot of talent on that defense. I will say that to start, Corey Foreman was one of the top recruits in the entire country, went to USC. They got Romello Height from Auburn. Even Shane Lee, the linebacker from Alabama, I think is big. They did some good recruiting in the secondary with Damani Jackson, who He's a 5-star recruit. He could make an impact as early as next year. Who knows? But Alex Grinch, if you were to poke holes in Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma's teams, his defense was never historically great. And the Big 12, the conference he's coming from, is a conference that's known nationally for not really playing any defense. Like, there's shootouts every single week in that conference. These quarterbacks are going for 400, 500 yards weekly. Where do you think, for UCLA, that they can expose this defense? Because I think, with guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, bringing back a guy like Kaz Allen, a speedster, as we saw last year against USC, making big plays. I mean, is this final score going to be like 65-60 when it comes to the game this year in the Rose Bowl?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Sounds fun. a little Wild West shootout. I mean, I haven't seen practice at USC yet this year, so it's hard to know. I think from what I know about Alex Grinch's defense, because he used to be the defensive coordinator at Washington State. He then moved to Ohio State and then went to Oklahoma, and he kind of had his breakout job at Washington State, remaking that defense under Mike Leach. And when Washington State had their best seasons, I think that they became a top 10 team briefly with Alex Grinch as the defensive coordinator. And he focused very, very specifically on just two things, which was turnovers and stopping the run. And those are like the most important things for his defense. So, I mean, if you're UCLA and your quarterback is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who historically has had trouble taking care of the football, but I think he's kind of grown out of that phase now. I think he's more mature now. You would hope that he wouldn't be susceptible to as many turnovers if they were to play their defense, or if UCLA were to play USC's defense under Alex Grinch. And Chip Kelly has always run the ball really well. Yeah. That's even back at Oregon. That's everyone thinks of the spread offense as like you throw the ball a lot, but Chip Kelly's spread offenses are you run the ball forever and ever and ever. So he's definitely continued that at UCLA. So it would be a very interesting matchup between Chip Kelly's offensive strengths and the focuses of what Alex Grinch has for his defense.
And I think there's a scenario. I know UCLA is not a top 25 team coming into the year, but they got two of their toughest 3 games at home, with Utah and USC being at home this year. There's a scenario when this game rolls around that they have two, top 15, maybe even top 10 teams playing each other at the Rose Bowl here in Los Angeles, which I think will get a lot of people viewing in nationally as opposed to just the LA crowd. So I'm really, really excited. Thuc Nhi, the last UCLA football question I got for you. What does UCLA go this year? They got 12 games on the schedule before a potential bowl game. What do you got for me?
I mean, they're definitely starting 3-0, right? They got Bowling Green, Alabama State, South Alabama. So if they don't go 3-0, that's a huge problem. Then Colorado, I think that's 4-0. So I would say UCLA at least 9 wins in the regular season. At least 9 wins to meet their expectations for what they need for the season.
I agree. And I think they're going to take one of those 3 big games, whether it's, the USC game at the end of the year. A lot of talent there, but they still got to get familiar with the system. They got to, adjust to a lot of new changes and movement. Utah is going to be tough, but you got that at home. And then the team I'm looking at, Oregon, is a very good defensive team, but I think UCLA can make a run up there at Outson. Thuc Nhi, so great to have you on. I had an awesome time. The last official question we got for you, I'm starting this new kind of thing. What have you been binge watching with your free time when you're not writing?
Oh, this is actually a really good question for me right now. I just caught up on Only Murders in the Building on Hulu.
Oh, I've heard good things. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. So the season finale is next week. I'm super excited to watch it. I've been parsing out. Do you know it's
I haven't watched it. I've heard great things about it. I actually just did Severance. Have you watched that or heard about that?
No, I haven't. Okay.
Apple TV. You're almost done with Murders in the Building. Go watch Severance after it. Starts off a little strange, but the ending of that season is as good as television as I've watched. I'm also trying to get back on the Better Call Saul train, so hopefully that works out as well. But
Okay.
Thuc, thank you so much for coming on. It's always great to see you. I hope you have an awesome rest of your week, my friend. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Bruin Bible, we are